Welcome to the Fantasy Think. I'm Jared, and today I'm going to be doing short reviews again. I'm going to be doing five different books or so. You'll see what I mean by that. And I'm just going to give these short reviews so that I can catch up to my reading with some of these reviews. As I seem to be reading a lot quicker these days, and I'm able to actually take the time to sit down and write. So these are quick reviews. They are off the cuff. They're not scripted, like my usual more in-depth stuff. But I figured I wanted to say stuff about these books that I've read within the past couple months here. So the first book on my docket here is Conan, Blood of the Serpent by S.M. Stirling. Um, I had a little trepidation going into this because it's not Robert E. Howard who's writing Conan, which I love, but and I did in a previous a long time ago. I read Robert Jordan's Conan stories. Three of them. There was like a collection of three of them in one book, and they were okay. I really didn't. It didn't really grasp me the way Howard's writing did, and so it was just okay. So I was a little trepidatious going into this, but what I have to say is I was pleasantly surprised by the depth of Sterling's knowledge of the setting and this story, Blood of the Serpent. It takes place as a prequel to the Robert E. Howard story, Red Nails. Red Nails is a famous short story that he did. It's been adapted by Marvel Comics a couple times, um, and it's really one of those stories that kind of stick with you after you read it. So one of the characters in that story is Valeria. It's a she acts as she's a fellow mercenary to Conan. In the story Red Nails, she kind of acts as a damsel in distress at sometimes, but then sometimes she holds her own. In this story, we do get to meet Valeria prior to Conan and her having those adventures in Red Nails. And so this story, Blood of the Serpent, it Sterling, he takes these characters, he has them meet in a natural way, other than the forced meeting they have in Red Nails. Like how it starts the story Red Nails off with them already knowing each other somehow. Never explains really how or how that all came about, or it's just ambiguous. So Sterling sets their meeting as something solid and something that naturally evolves into the relationship they eventually had in Red Nails. And I really liked how he pulled that off. He also really pulls off how mercenary companies that Conan and Valeria are both involved with interact with Stygian society. Stygia is a kingdom ruled by the priests of Set, and the god of the snake there, and um, so their position in this society is precarious to start with, but they are needed as these nobles of Stygia. Don't like to get their hands dirty. They like to hire mercenary companies and stuff like that. Um, so Sterling really does a great job of explaining that situation, getting us into the setting, and he also does a great job of the subtle use of magic by one of the more dastardly characters in here. So it wasn't kind of your in the face type of thing, which I appreciated that for a Conan story. So all told, I really enjoyed this book. It was fast paced, just like a Conan story should be. It had plenty of action in it, like a Conan story should. I felt it was a little long in the tooth for a Conan story because most Conan stories are short stories. They're not novels. They're not novel length. And so I felt he repeated himself a few times, and there's a reason for it, but I still was like, okay, I get it. But overall, it was a quick read. It was a fun read. And if you like Conan, and I don't think you'll be disappointed by this. And of course, like I said, it leads right into a famous short story by Howard Red Nails. So that is Blood of the Serpent by S.M. Stirling, uh, published by Titan Books. So check that out when you get a chance. All right, next up is Ian Esslemont's Assail, the sixth book in his novels of the Malazan Empire, and the you could say really the 16th book in the whole Malazan epic that includes the Malazan Book of the Fallen by Stephen Erickson, because they all go together. All right, and so this was a completion of my reread of all things Malazan for as far as those 16 books are concerned. I finally finished this off in December. My reread, and I actually finished this big chunky book off in the month of December in 1 month, which is pretty good for me. That's not normal, and I was thrilled with it. Of course, you know this is my favorite series of all time, the whole Malazan thing, and this book delivers on so many levels for Malazan entertainment. Um, a lot of these novels of the Malazan Empire can be kind of standalone-ish, but this one, it does follow that trend. It takes place on the continent of Assail, and but it also really is the one that ties up a lot of stuff that Esslemont did in previous books. It ties up a lot of stuff about the Crimson Guard. So if you've been wondering about that mercenary company, that entity within the whole Malazan universe, a lot of stuff gets answered in here about that company. And it also ties up a lot of it gives a lot of information about the crippled god and about the history and a lot about some history of the Malazan Empire. And Esselmont introduces us once again to this fascinating culture on this continent that we have not encountered before. And this fascinating, um, a lot of unbelievable naval situations are in here that are just riveting. Just you know, with a combination of naval know-how, sea ship, uh, and twisted magic that makes these the idea of a ghost ship come forth and what it means in this world and just that eerie feeling of what a ghost ship could be. And it's man, it really tore at all the feelings that you would have for such a thing. uh wonderfully done. And the cultures that he introduces in here tie into certain characters from early novels, and it all just makes sense. You get to meet Fisher Telkath, something like that. The guy who's writes a lot of those epigraphs in Erickson's books and in his earlier novels, Esselmont's. And so you get to meet him, and he's a character in here. So that's great news for those of you who are wondering about that guy who's writing all that stuff. And you also get in just dimensions of the history, the old characters, everything that you would want from a Malazan book is in here. There's stuff that ties up about Jagut and even Fort Crudo Sail, and which the continent kind of has the same name, and Talanamas, um, Silver Fox. Okay, hope that doesn't give anything away. But yeah, this is non-spoiler, so I'm trying to be nice here and not throw out too much stuff that's going to ruin it for anybody, which I don't think it would, because I was just as unbelievably fascinated this on a reread as I was the first time. I think even more so. I couldn't put this one down. It was so good. And Esslemont's Assail. If you haven't read the Esslemont books yet, do yourself a favor and get into them because they are really wonderful. All right. Thirdly, I'm going to do kind of a combined group uh, review of Swamp Thing, specifically the Saga of the Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. This is Alan Moore's run on the character, the DC Comics character Swamp Thing. This was his run. He was brought over from Britain to do this back in the 80s. DC wanted to breathe new life into the character that was originally written by Len Wein, and Bernie Wrightson back in the early 70s. Bernie Wrightson being a famous artist from back then, he was really good. But the, the series had been canceled a long time ago. DC Comics wanted to bring back Alan Moore to revive the character. They saw all the great stuff he was doing over in England, and they said, "Come on in." Um, and of course, that led to Alan Moore writing a whole bunch of other things that we all know about today. But this Saga of the Swamp Thing is a 6-volume run, and so it ran about, I would say, about 40 issues or so. Man, this thing's heavy. And so the Swamp Thing character back then in the 80s, and going into this, you have to realize that a lot of these issues that are in here were single episode issues that you go into a comic book store back then, you go to a convenience store, they're on the rack, and you can read a single comic in one shot and get a full story. So a lot of these stories are kind of designed that way. Uh, but also, Alan Moore did have a greater overarching type of story that he wanted to tell in here. And as you get into it, it begins to develop and it begins to show. And so he had this balancing act he had to perform to keep that overarching theme going and also give you a complete story within a single issue. And he balanced it very well. This isn't my favorite work by Alan Moore by far, but I still think it's pretty damn good. And he brings up a lot of themes about environmentalism. The Swamp Thing creature is an elemental creature, so he is affected by the environment. He's a part of it, and so that kind of environmental awareness is a theme that's brought up in here. But there's also a lot of themes about identity and who he is and what he is, and his love interest Abby in here. She also goes through that similar type of identity crisis, and this is a horror book, as well as being part of the superhero DC universe, and so there are some elements of horror in here. That there's a little bit of grotesquerie in the artwork. Expertly displays this. Just a word on the artwork in here by Stephen Bissett, John Tobin, Rick Veitch, and Alfredo Alcala. Fantastic stuff. They do really great work in here. There's a lot of great, pencil and ink type of artwork that it's an older style than what we're used to today, but it was really a lot of detailed stuff and a lot of visceral horror shots that really stretched the imagination. And they did panel layouts and just great stuff that they had in here. I thought were really wonderful, and I thought they brought Moore's words really to life as they went along. I think that's kind of a strong point in the book here. There were points where the Swamp Thing character had to cross over with some of the main DC characters like Batman and Superman, the Justice League, and some other ones. Those were a little clunky sometimes, the crossover stuff with the main superheroes. When he had crossover stuff with other characters that weren't so well known. It was a little better. One especially being the Demon, which was a Jack Kirby character from the 70s. That went really well. Uh, there was also a crossover with Dead Man. I'm not sure when he was created, but that was a DC character that worked fairly well. The Phantom Stranger worked okay. Um, and so in a whole idea that was beginning to form here of a DC heaven and hell that really wasn't that prominent in the superhero universe yet, that was beginning to develop more, explored that a little bit. He created the character of John Constantine, who eventually branched off into his own book called Hellblazer. And you may know him from the movie Constantine, starring Keanu Reeves. But this Constantine, of course, is London. so, um, but that character was created in here and put to very good use in this collection. And of course, there was also the creation of the entities of Cain and Abel from the Bible, but they were their own characters, and they had that more created to represent kind of a storytelling type vehicle. And so he created those as well, and we all know they went on to greater fame in the Sandman series. But the the evolution and the growth of the Swamp Thing as an elemental force, and how his powers are grown and shown to expand as the series went on. I think Moore did a brilliant job um, fleshing that out and expanding it, and even having him have the ability to eventually go travel through to another planet and stuff like that. Kind of being forced to do that, and so it was very entertaining in that manner. And despite of some of the clunkiness of having to involve the rest of the DC universe, it he made it work, and he made it enjoyable, and he made you think about a lot of social issues. Alan Moore really tackled a lot of Americana type of lore in here, especially in the Everglades area, the Floridian, the Louisiana, I think it was, yeah, Louisiana area. And so there was a lot of commentary on the social situations at the time in the South, and on what the what how people react to um, like a woman being caught in love with a monster. That was pretty pertinent. He tackles some issues of racism, and like I said, he tackles a lot of environmental themes. So um, if you get a chance, check this out. Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. It was a good time. All right, next up we have Weird Gods by Susana Imaginario. And this book is my self-published read of the month for January so far, and I really enjoyed this book. It kind of mishmashes some mythologies together. It plays with those aspects of Norse mythology and Greek mythology, and it throws in a couple other mythologies here and there as well, including like the Egyptians and so forth. And what she's doing is she's basically creating new stories based upon uh, the situations that are happening in the book in order to move those stories forward. And this is really cool because it's something I always thought about myself, that I was like, oh, maybe I can write a modern day mythology, based upon Loki and friends, and I always had those ideas, and I always started writing a comic on it and stuff like that. But this idea of creating more mythology for these set mythologies, I think is really cool. This does not take place necessarily in modern day. Maybe it does. I'm not sure, but because it takes place upon, in Niflheim, is the main setting. There's a lot of other setting stuff going on, but Niflheim's the main setting, and so and the whole idea behind Wyrd is a interesting concept, but basically a god um, is gets trapped into a mortal body, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean human. So there's a lot going on here. There's different mythological creatures. There's different, and there's all your favorite gods are in there as well. They make appearances or they're part of the story. I won't tell you which ones are which, just for spoilers. But you got Odin, you got Loki, you got Hades, you got Zeus, you got Kronos and Gaia and there's an Egyptian god in there too. I can't remember their name, but um, it's very it's very all inclusive of different mythologies. Uh, scheming against each other, scheming within each other. It gets there's a great puzzle here about the identity of the main character and who she is, and we get to follow along on her adventures or misadventures, and there's also a few more viewpoints thrown in there too for good measure, just to give us a well-rounded a tale about what's going on. So I really like what she did. I love the idea behind it, and and I'm really looking forward to eventually getting into some of the other books further on in the series. Yeah, I think there's 4 out now, and I believe I could be wrong about that, but correct me if I'm wrong. But this is Weird Gods. It's the first book in the Timelessness series, and that should give you an idea of what she's playing with here. As the one of the gods mentioned is Chronos, so timelessness. So that's a lot of clever stuff in this book, and it was a quick read. It was enjoyable. Um, the prose just kind of flows. Some of it's in first person, so you're really immersed in it, and it just moves along very quickly. And there's a lot of unique, interesting situations that happen with the main character that as she explores this new state of being, you get introduced to different things, and you get to see how biases and prejudices of how gods might see mortals and mortals might see gods, and those get mixed around, and those get shown, for what they are. And so I thought she did a pretty good job with that as well. uh, Really nice tale. Go ahead and check it out. Last but not least, we have Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens: A Graphic History, Volume 3, The Masters of History. Uh, and this is also done, the artwork's done by, I don't know if you can read that, but it's David Vandermeulen and Daniel Casanave. Yes. And so they help him out with this very interesting take on Sapiens. Let's see the artwork in there. It's a little cartoonish, and you got uh, Yuval there, Professor Harari. So this is the third in his series of graphic novel adaptations of his very famous book, Sapiens. And I just absolutely love what he did with the information that he takes out of Sapiens, puts it in graphic novel forms with these guys, and present it in such a unique and different way. It's the same information, but it's completely presented completely differently. And I love how he did it. How he breaks it all down, And this volume in particular breaks down the three fictions that we know that humans have created in order to evolve even faster and better. Um, relatively speaking. Basically, those three fictions being empire, money, and religion. And so the way he goes about it, as he kind of presents it as a game show, that these three are competing to be the masters of history, and it's wicked fun how he breaks it down and has these three these three ideas competing against each other to for their to be the ones who say, yeah, we were the ones that forced the humans into the history that we have, and we were the ones responsible. And it's they argue with each other. It's great. It's great. Um, and so this, if you guys have never read Sapiens, um, you know, what are you waiting for? First of all, but also, if you want a more an easier flowing graphic novel presentation, if you prefer words, if you prefer comics, then you are in luck, because that's what this is. And so I just wanted to give a short note shout out for that. These things are fantastic. So even if you have read Sapiens, the actual history book, you're going to want to pick this up because it's that much fun, and it reminds you of all the stuff you learned in it, but it presents it in such a new and fascinating way. So, with all that said, those five books, I hope you got something out of all these reviews for all these five books. And if you've read any of these, let me know. If you plan on reading these, let me know, because that would be cool to get your thoughts on them. And with all that said, please like and subscribe. As I always say, be good to each other.